bunch of cadets ask Picard about his encounter with the Hirogen. Captain Shaw sharpens a pretty rad knife, and Seven finds some residue. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 4, No-Win Scenario, written by Terry Matalas and Sean Tretta, directed by a friend of ours. We know him as Jonathan Frakes. We are joined by a very special guest, the hero of Star Trek Picard. You know him as Captain Shaw. He's flexing. Todd Stashwick is here. Hello, Todd. How are you?
I'm living the dream, gentlemen. Living the dream.
Great shirt too.
Oh,
Led Zeppelin shirt. He's in his.
Have you heard these guys? Have you heard these? It is not a man cave. I'm gonna stop you right there, Ryan. It is a nerd lair. It is It is a not specific.
You just finished something. You just finished, actually, speaking of which, the Silmarillion yesterday or the day before. Can we just talk about that for 1 second? Speaking of nerd lair, thank you for the correction. Because I tried reading the Silmarillion decades ago because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings guy.
Sure.
And I read it, but I didn't quite retain much of it because
it's pretty Byzantine. It's a cosmology, especially the first few chapters. It's like just diving into the Bible, because it's hard to get your mind visually around what they're speaking, because they're speaking in like mythic metaphors. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and Iluvatar wrote the song, and the Maiar sang the song. Like it's all very biblical speak. So what I did was, I'm going to give a plug to these people that I've never met. There's a podcast called the Prancing Pony Podcast, and they started by doing a breakdown of the Silmarillion. That's the sort of what launched their whole podcast. And each week they would take a chapter and discuss it for 2 hours. And so I would read a chapter, then I would listen. I would read a chapter and listen, because I tried to pick up the book before and I was like, I don't get this. And then I was like, okay, I need kind of a master class. And so I created my own. I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to a chapter and then listen to these. They're not quite scholars, but they are far more experts on this than I am, and they're word nerds, and they dig into the language of it all, and it was really helpful. There's still big chunks of it that have not sunk in yet, but it was super helpful in sort of giving me a framework to approach the book. If people want to, this is a process I recommend.
Mm-hmm.
So you say there's no specific designation or method to the nerd?
There's no. It doesn't. A man cave to me denotes only men come in here, and that ain't the truth. Yeah. Like I have just as many ladies and non-binary folk that come in to play Dungeons and Dragons, and my daughter runs games at this table, and it's filled with gals and non-binary or transgender, and so I can't call it a man cave because it's open for all. All are welcome. All are welcome. I think
I see a map in the corner there. Is that a giant map you've got rolled up?
That is the Word of the Witness from 12 Monkeys. That's an original prop from. This is my little 12 Monkeys corner.
Nice.
And you can see my deacon jacket and my chair back and the West 7 flag. And then if you've seen 12 Monkeys, you will know what that is. If you haven't, shame on you for having me on your podcast and not having watched it.
On that subject of shame, actually, before we jump into Star Trek Picard, I have seen personally several people in the Twitterverse and social media that have said, I have never seen 12 Monkeys, but if Todd Stashwick is as good in 12 Monkeys, you've seen these, as good as he is as Captain Shaw, people are saying, should I go watch 12 Monkeys? So how cool is that You are actually like an advertisement for a completely different franchise because of how good you are at what you're doing.
I'm an ambassador. I will say first and foremost, actually, Terry Matalas is probably the advertiser because Terry was the showrunner for 12 Monkeys. And actually, this episode, we're going to seg so beautifully. This episode, this episode 304 was written by Sean Tretta and Terry Matalas. And Sean was also a writer on 12 Monkeys. So the reason that we've been kind of crowing about it, we've been saying, hey, there's a flavor and a DNA that is shared between season 3 of Picard and 12 Monkeys. And Picard's only releasing once a week. So here's something to watch in between that you could binge on Hulu while getting ready. So it's kind that people would want to watch it for my performance. One interviewer said, hey, what was your audition like for Star Trek? And I said 4 seasons of 12 Monkeys. That was my audition. Having worked with Terry for 4 seasons, he kind of knew what I was going to bring to the buffet.
When I'm watching you do this character, it looks like you're having so much fun, and I'm having a lot of fun watching you. Tell me about how much fun it is to play this character and to kind of creep up under the skin of these guys.
Well, it's again, going back to what I said. So Chris Monfett was also a writer on 12 Monkeys. There was so often when you get a part, like when I was cast on 12 Monkeys, you get a part, and then the writers then slowly figure out how to write it to the actor that was cast. I benefited greatly that before the script ever got in my hands, humblingly, those writers were already writing with me in mind, so that they knew the kinds of words and moments that I slip into easier than others, maybe easier than other roles that I would have to sort of figure out. This guy I got from the beginning because in many ways it was crafted for me, which is a rare and wonderful experience. So it was fun, and it was like putting on a suit that was tailored to you. And so I had the time of my life.
Could you actually recognize that in the script while you were reading it? Could you actually say, oh, they definitely wrote this for me?
Yeah, I mean, there were definite Stashwick-isms, and often Stashwick-isms were just me ripping off Bill Murray. Just like moments like when he goes, well, that's fun. Any other weird shit you all want to throw at me? Like, that's very, like, I can hear how they included kind of my rhythms and my snark within the confines of the character and the kinds of ebbs and flows musically in the dialogue. Now, the structure of the character is different than who I played on 12 Monkeys, the arc of the character, other than there's some trauma in his past and it has hardened him in the present. And like there is some shared DNA, but one of them was a sociopathic Han Solo, and the other one is this kind of by the rules, beleaguered guy who just wants to have a glass of wine and not run into any trouble that would put his crew in danger. So the character on 12 Monkeys also was protecting like 200 people. He was the head of an army. So, I mean, there are similarities, but could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Oh. No. You made some great points.
You're answering it. Actually,
you answered it all the way, and it made me think of Picard usually, and gets the reference from people. So there's this reference that everybody approaches his character with. So it's this homage and this prestige. And I think what makes your character work so well is that you don't adopt that same kind of putting him on a pedestal as everyone else. Has that caused people to react in a way like, don't you talk to him like that? Is there moments where people...
Of course. And I think, a few things. First of all, the show is not The Next Generation. It's Picard, so it literally is a dissection of his character. It is a putting him through the sieve and seeing his component parts, no pun intended. It is a deconstruction and a polemic on the character of Picard, and so you won't get that unless you test his mettle. And I'm a character there to have him confront his past, to have him confront his present, and to challenge all the mythology that is Picard, right? That's in many ways the function of Shaw. And by the way, you don't have a story if everything goes smoothly. So you need some sticks in the spokes. So to your next question, what's been fun to watch, and I've known since page 1, and again, talking about what the writers from 12 Monkeys know how to use me as an instrument in storytelling. From page 1, I knew people would not like him. He's unlikable. He's prickly, and that is by design. So when people go, "Oh, I love to hate him. I love to hate him," like, you're supposed to. Like, that's
mission accomplished.
That is his function. The fun part, and a lot of this happened on the cruise, was when people go, "I love to hate him," I would stop and go, "What do you hate about him? What do you hate about him?" And they go, "Whoa." And I go, "Do you hate the fact that he is trying to keep 500 people alive? Do you hate the fact that he's being lied to without any direct orders from above to change his course? Do you hate the fact that his first officer betrays his direct orders? Do you hate all that? Or do you hate the fact that he's snippy?"
This is Captain Shaw right now. We're watching.
Right? Like, do you hate what you hate the fact is that he's rude. So, I mean, I get, like, they don't like the way he's talking to them, but if you dissect all his reasons, you go, he's not wrong.
He's got a point. Yeah,
right. Well, I can tell you why they do hate him. And by the way, thanks for letting me, actually making me look up the word polemic. I had not heard that word before. So thank you for teaching me something today. I just looked it up. But the answer is because we've known, and people have discussed this now, we've known Captain Picard for 35 years, and we know and love this guy, and so we're following him. The story is Picard. If the show were called Captain Shaw and we were following him for seasons,
it should be, but go on.
And it will be in the future. But then you get these two old guys showing up, being like, "We now want to take over and tell you what to do." We would be rooting for Captain Shaw and saying, "No, screw these guys. Who are these guys?" And in the past, when Captain Picard was in The Next Generation and old people or grumpy people or aliens or whatever would come along and try to make demands, we'd be rooting for Picard to do exactly what you did. So it's all a matter of perspective, which is the brilliant writing and the way the writers understand this, which is if you put an adversary, however right that adversary is, in front of the person that we're rooting for, we automatically dislike that person.
Mm-hmm. And what I will also say is, had they not let me do what I did with it, and had they not written it in the way and then gave me the bandwidth and space to inject little flashes of charm, little flashes of funny, little flashes of this, I think it would have been easy to just write him off as a dick. Mm-hmm. But because they wrote him a little charming, and they make a joke about that he substituted asshole for charm in this week's episode. Right. I think had they not wrote that, it would have been easy to write him off. But I think the character resonates with people because they go, he's right, and he's kind of funny. So there is things for them to latch onto, or, boy, I wish I could talk to my superiors that way. Because that was some of the other feedback that I got from people. Like, oh, no, I like the fact that he's standing up for his ship and his crew. I don't like the fact that he's dead naming Seven. They don't like that, but obviously that is made clear this week as to why. And so the fun part about playing roles like this is I want you to dislike him, but I also want you to be conflicted, and then I also want to wrestle you into loving him. That is the fun part and the challenge of playing a part like this is making you go, oh crap, by episode 1 I hated him. Now I love this guy. He's breaking my heart. And so that's far more interesting than going, I hate him and that's it. Or I love him and that's it. The fact that you win them over is you actually, now he's actually having a relationship inside of the fans in their heads. He's actually causing them to change their minds, and it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And you do that in this episode with Seven of Nine's character. And I really enjoyed the scenes you had with her, specifically the one where you play Shaw how people want you, quote unquote, to play. When you say, hey, you're doing a great job and I think you should be a captain one day. Totally.
Pull the rug out from under it.
Is what I would say if I were a changeling. That's brilliant.
Exactly.
I love that.
It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's how people want you to play it. And you're like, yeah, that's not how I'm going to do it. But
that's not who this guy is.
It's not
and
who
at the
this guy
same
is.
time, you see the chemistry of how they actually solve problems together well. Mm-hmm. And especially when we get to the engine room, especially when to like all of that stuff, you suddenly go, no, these two are a really great team, even if they are oil and water, but oil and water can make a great balsamic.
I knew you were going with vinaigrette there, and I'm with you on that.
Which is what I was dipping my space meat in at the beginning.
Was it?
It's balsamic.
The first time we saw you, and I just think you had the greatest intro scene into Star Trek that I've seen. That scene with you at the dinner table, just finishing your food and drinking your wine. And the way you give it to him, the way you exit the scene with a pat on Riker's shoulder, like I hope those quarters are not too
bad. And I have a roadie.
Yeah,
I took a roadie with me.
Just pat him on the head while you're at it.
Yeah,
I was tempted.
I hope you'll find those quarters accommodating some type of thing.
The best we could do at such short notice.
Yeah. What a great intro scene, and I think Ryan was saying, I love this. This guy, who is this guy? I want more.
I remember that.
That's how I feel.
In that first episode, it was especially that one line where you said no, but beyond that, no is good writing, well delivered, but you said request denied, which was such a push down of like, just be aware this was a request that you just put in. You are not demanding, we're not buddy, this is not an order. You're reminding them this was a request, and it was just beautifully written and delivered.
Thank you. Yeah, that scene, I remember being in Terry's backyard when he was pitching me that scene or describing, he's like, while they were writing, he's like, and we're going to meet this guy. And he goes, it's going to be one of the greatest entrances of a character. You're going to just see him cutting meat and just kind of having this conversation and watching Terry kind of go through it. And I was enthralled. I'm like, wow, what a cool entrance. And then it's also a wink at my introduction in 12 Monkeys, because when you first meet me, I'm sharpening a knife, and then we have a little knife scene later in this episode. And so just putting in these little winks for the crossover fans. But this man who literally is sitting at the head of his own table in his dining room on his ship, and establishing dominance. And that's what that whole scene is about. And so to what you just said, request denied is establishing dominance. It's like, thanks for asking. You don't have orders. I see no paper. Have a nice sleep in your bunk beds.
There's also very quickly a tiny, in my mind, a little nod to Denethor of Lord of the Rings. I don't think that was intentional, but that beautiful scene where he's eating and giving out orders. And for some reason, it just seems so sinister having a close-up of somebody eating, but I don't know if that was intentional at all.
Well, it's so visceral, right? It's such a visceral experience to watch somebody, and basically I had them for dinner.
And by the way, that is played by Mr. John Noble, who plays the Diviner in Star Trek Prodigy. Shout out to him. But you were saying, Cirroc?
I was going to allude to another scene which I really connected with, and that was the moment where you confront Picard on the Wolf 359. The story you give about being chosen as one of the 10 people to leave the shuttlecraft, on the escape pod, I thought that was a great story that gives insight to who Shaw is. It gives me more than this guy's an asshole. Mm-hmm. It tells me a lot about the kind of pain and suffering that you've seen, and how you worked your way up from being a grease monkey to being a captain. So I think that scene in itself was so well played, but also gives me so much more meat to chew on when I think about who Shaw is.
Yeah, you suddenly see why he is like, I'm not sacrificing 500 people for these two golden boys. I'm not doing it because he is, and especially not Picard. Like, of all people, am I going to put my neck on the line for, and the lives of all my, so this man regards, does he have a turn at the end of episode 2? Of course he does. Because he's also not a monster. And there's also, when he finds out it's his son, it's like, well, now that it's officially confirmed that it's his son, this kid is the son of an admiral. He officially is. He is a member of Starfleet. This is what we do. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Before, if he was just some criminal kid who is mucking up all of our works,
yep,
this is his bed. He needs to lie in it. But once it suddenly falls into the chain of command and falls into the charter and it falls into rules of engagement, well, then we turn the ship around and we try to get out of there. Mm-hmm. But back to the Wolf 359 scene. Yeah, it was a meal. It was a beautiful revealing of a character. And I was just talking about this in the Ready Room. In Hero's Journey, there is a part of story called the Belly of the Beast, where truths are revealed. And I go to Luke in the cave on Dagobah, or you think Han and Leia when they're inside the worm in Empire Strikes Back, and that's when they kiss for the first time. That's
a romantic place.
It's not just a romantic place. I mean, it's a romance, the belly, but it's literally the belly of the beast. And this is when characters placed in these organic environments, they reveal hidden truths. So this is where their love is revealed. This is where she's literally sitting on his lap when they realize that that the whole thing rocks. Or Luke confronts himself as Vader in the cave, and so you get this beautiful confessional from Riker in this episode. And you get this confessional from Shaw in this episode. And I think there's a beautiful moment. I mean, in Jerry there's lots of doubt and self-reveal. It's really a well-constructed episode. But then you also understand, you're like, okay, it's not right that he dead names her, but trauma runs deep.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to that specific scene, not only do we learn about Shaw and why and how he feels about Seven of Nine and about Picard and about all that stuff, but we also learn about Shaw beyond that, which is what I took it as was survivor's guilt, right? A lot of people have that, when they survive something, and they have these feelings of, why me? Why do I deserve to live when all these others don't? And just this one was a very
Chicago,
right.
Yeah.
This was a very clear case where it seemed like the lieutenant was picking people at random. So now you've got a character that probably in the back of his mind feels like he needs to justify that decision for the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life,
right? He needs to prove.
It's beautiful.
That
I have to say, and I'm going to try to say this without getting like silly emotional about it, but today alone, several vets have reached out to me on Twitter about that scene and about survivor's guilt, about PTSD, and about how they deeply connected to that. And I'm like, I am just a knucklehead monkey on TV, and oh my God, these people that have served for our country and they've gone through this stuff, if somehow they find connection and catharsis through this character, that far exceeds anything I could ever hope for in the power of story, but it also tells you about the power of story. Because that's what he is. He's a vet of a war, and to exactly what you said, Ryan, which is he has survivor's guilt. Exactly.
Excellent. It was so well done. I love the scene. I was moved by it. It brought tears to my eyes, and then they also put the exclamation mark when they had the other Starfleet personnel in the bar, kind of looking at you like that you just did that, and you do a whole full kind of my bad, like one of those.
He owns it. He owns it.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. He also excuses himself at the beginning when he's like, your mom's got me up on a lot of meds.
Yeah.
So this might be the drugs talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But here we go.
Right.
But it also, I think in an interesting way, it allowed his crew
to see
him
as
more.
A person. Yeah, to see him more instead of just the guy yelling orders, a person who actually has feelings, who has hurt. You're just not this robot who just goes around and barking orders at people. You do have feelings. Other thing I love the whole can I talk to you off the record? No. On the record, no.
No.
Beautiful. I played that back 3 times.
Officially? Yeah. No. Unofficially? No.
Still no.
I'm the king of no.
Yeah. And by the way, your friends are doing a bang up job. I love the view.
Again, that's
sinking into a nebula.
That's Terry Matalas. And again, even the dipshit from Chicago stuff, that's all Terry Matalas going, this is Stashwick stuff right here. Because Deacon, there's moments when Terry, you should get him on the show. There's moments when Terry, when we're doing 12 Monkeys, we have a shorthand. He'll just walk up and go, this moment is Venkman. I go, got it. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Is what?
And Venkman.
That's what I thought you said. Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it's like I know what he means. Or he'll go, this is that kind of, Harrison Ford ambling through where you just kind of like, I know exactly what you mean. Because we're both 80s movies kids and we have shorthand for the tone of a moment that we're looking for. And there's another line, you boys are in so much trouble, which is such like, it's just pure Bill Murray for me. Mm-hmm. And again, I spend my life trying to be Bill Murray, Tom Hanks, Christopher Walken, David Letterman. Like these are all my influences growing up, and they're laid bare when I watch my own work. I'm like, yep, stole that.
Well, Bill Murray is a living genius like the rest of them. And by the way, I see the Ghostbusters poster back there. Very nice.
Oh, that's a good one.
Most quotable movie of all time, in my opinion.
That's a good one too. It's Venkman. Venkman. Look, I grew up just wanting to be Venkman, so I just had to figure out how my life could organize its way towards that. So I went through Second City. I was up for Saturday Night Live. Like this was what I thought I was going to be doing, and somehow I'm in Starfleet.
That's cool too, though.
Can't complain.
Todd, we loved your work. You are so excellent. This season 3 is by far the best season. Terry Matalas is killing it. You are killing it.
Thank you.
The villain in this is also killing it. I love what she's playing. Amanda Plummer is her name, right?
So good, yeah.
She is killing
Pulp
it.
Fiction.
Another person that I feel like is
Pulp
having
Fiction.
fun. Yeah, I feel like she's having fun. You two seem like you're having the most fun when I'm watching.
Well, it's easy for us because we're the new kids on the block, and as well as Ed Spaliers. Like, there's no expectation for our characters. So we, in many ways, have the most freedom because we are not trying to tether it to something that came before, like trying to go, this version of Riker may be different, but he has to have connective tissue to the Riker that you all grew up knowing and loving. For Amanda, myself, and Ed, there's a lot more freedom to establish who these characters are and to play with that aspect of them. So I think we are surprising people, and it's easy for people to go, oh, that's new, that's fun, that's a new flavor in this soup.
Big time.
When I think everybody is bringing their A game.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is so good.
Including Dr. Oak. Shout out to Dr. Oak. I believe that's Sean
Tretta's wife.
Well, Todd, we really appreciate you joining us today. This was really awesome. It's such a treat. You're so much fun. We love watching you every week. We're going to be pissed in about a month when we can't watch you anymore. So I guess that's when we'll watch 12 Monkeys and Ghostbusters again.
You get a whole lot of Deacon. Not a lot of season 1, but whoops, where'd you go? Hang on. My phone rang and it kicked you guys off.
Yeah.
Now Deacon was brought on as a guest star for season 1 for just a couple episodes of 12 Monkeys, and then Terry turned it into a series regular for season 2, 3, and 4. So it's also a really fun arc of a role. So
well, for anybody who's out there listening, we got to see you starring on a show ASAP. Todd,
okay,
you've got that. Please,
all right,
please, Todd, please do it for us.
I'm looking for work, so anybody want to hire me? I'm out there.
I can't get enough of how you do it. So keep it up. You're amazing. Like I said, the best entrance into a character on Star Trek that I believe I've ever seen. I love it.
Well, come on.
Well, hey,
this is City Alpha 5. Come on.
That's good company, though. You're up. That's
true.
I'm not comparing myself to Ricardo Montalban on anybody.
Well, for me, that's where we're at, because as an entrance, it's just you can't get a better scene.
I appreciate.
And this episode was full of really great scenes with you as well. So that's why I can't get enough of you, Todd. I hope to see you in every episode the rest of this season, and I want to see you starring in your own show in the very near future.
Do you want to work for me? Because you would be amazing. Are you an agent?
I will write up any review you need on any
episode. Your PR is through the roof.
Thank you. And by the way, we love you. When we do have the Captain Shaw 7 of 9 and Raffi spinoff, there will be a reporter on the ship called Jake Sisko, who will be like, involved in all the dramas.
Yeah, I'll do all the interviews.
It'll be a good show. But anyway, Todd, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for joining us. Everybody at home, stick around. We will be right back on the 7th Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule. We are still basking in the Captain Shaw afterglow. Man, oh man, that was cool. With Cirroc Lofton, of course. Let's hit up these trivioids of the week very quickly. And they go a little something like this. A bunch of cadets ask Picard about his encounter with the Hirogen. 7 is reinstated unofficially. Captain Shaw sharpens a pretty rad knife. Riker records a private message for Deanna Troi, or at least tries to. Picard pulls out some wine from his own backyard. Jack Crusher prefers cheap whiskey on the rocks. 7 finds some residue. And Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. That's what Jack Crusher said, but I still don't understand what the heck that means. Anyway, this was quite possibly the best episode so far of the season, in my opinion. At least it certainly gave us a lot of answers. It gave us some unbelievable performances. I mean, Jonathan Frakes got to show off his acting chops, in my opinion, better in this episode than any episode in The Next Generation. He just really brought it.
Yeah. Watching this episode made me feel like this was a motion picture. There was a motion picture feel to this quality of everything that I was watching. I like the performances a lot. I think Jonathan Frakes, as a director, really hit this one out of the park. Everything looked, the shots were right, the flow of it was right, the tempo was perfect. There were no moments when I was sitting around, feeling like, oh, this is going on too long. The tempo was perfect. I think Jonathan Frakes just nailed this one. And the performance, everybody's performance was great. I liked Jerry Ryan's performance. I thought she was at her best in this episode.
Totally.
There were moments that she gave really good just interaction with her and Shaw. I liked the interaction between Picard and Riker. The whole like them kind of butting heads a little bit. It was Riker versus Picard. At some point, he told him, you can call me number one, and then that it went downhill from there.
He's like, maybe I shouldn't have told him that. He's like, you tell one guy they can finally call you number one, and suddenly they think that you're their underling.
Yeah, it went downhill really fast. And at some point, Riker was like, it's my ship, and get off the ship, and you got us all killed. It wasn't pleasant, but I liked the performances, and I thought that. Also, the special effects of the villain played by Amanda Plummer, the scene where she cuts her hand off in a whole nother.
What the did we just see?
Yeah.
And by the way, our good buddy John Orchiola of Screen Rant, who's also interviewed Todd Stashwick in the past, he texted in just a little bit ago, and he said that the villain that Vadic talks to is billed as the Face, and voiced by Garth Kemp of the Seattle Supersonics. That's a 1990s basketball joke, everybody. It's Sean Kemp, actually.
Yeah, the Face was kind of terrorizing. It was,
yeah. What a great name for him.
Yeah. It looked, I was like, what the hell is this? This whole like cut your hand off, turn into something else. It was pretty remarkable to watch. And I thought the special effects were amazing. So yes, this was, I have to say, this was the best episode, period, of all of the whole show so far. This is the best episode.
Well, and it was so earned because, it did so well because of what the first 3 episodes set up. And it was such an interesting concept to basically have a 4-episode season is what we just saw, or we saw a 3.5 hour movie, because episode 4 kind of closes the chapter, and we don't usually see that. We usually get a hint of that in shows. Sometimes they have like 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 episode arcs, but in a 10 episode season, it's really interesting to see that chapter really close. And the overall story has just been barely opened, which is the mystery of what the heck is actually going on. But this was a 4-episode season kind of, and it was a really interesting concept, and it works. And it didn't make us think, good, I'm satisfied, I don't have to watch anymore because they've closed the book. It just made us go, wow, that was amazing, and I can't wait to see what's next. We still have 6 more episodes. Really cool idea. I really liked it.
Yeah, and it's actually this season is making me sad that we're not going to get more of this show, because this is actually how I wanted the show to start out, and I wish that we would actually be, just now starting into whatever they want. Because I feel like it's just, it's getting good now. This is getting good. I'm liking all the stories. I like the whole integrated crews. They've got this mixed crew kind of thing happening. It's half next generation people, and then half of the new people, the new LaForges and whatnot. So I like all of that. The blend of the cast. I like the writing of Terry Matalas. I think he has proven to me to be exceptional in his storytelling when it comes to this season of Picard. He's just knocking it out of the box and leaving you with just a little bit more of a gem each time. These kind of a cliffhanger where you're like, what? That's his son? And then it's the next episode. And then it's like, at the end of this one, it was Jack having those dreams of some kind of red door opening, some red clouds forming, something like that.
And so who knows what's going on there, right?
Right. We don't know what's going on, but what
we will.
saying is they leave you want, like with some more, even though we've closed all of these other doors, we're opening some more over here. And I think that's another element to really great writing that Terry is doing at this time.
Yeah, this feels like a masterclass in science fiction writing, because you don't necessarily have to know everything about Star Trek, everything about the Next Generation, really anything about the first two seasons. You can literally just drop somebody in here and they can enjoy the story, because we're learning just as much as, somebody that's never watched anything previous to this. However, there are a few things that we pick up that are amazing. Like, I don't know if you noticed the space jellyfish from the very first episode of The Next Generation encounter at Farpoint. They even mentioned Farpoint, and then later on we saw all the little space jellyfish, and so we're like, oh my god, from the very first episode of Next Generation 36 years ago to now, we are seeing the birth of these space jellyfish. That was pretty awesome.
The name of those jellyfish basing, I looked that up. They are called Cirroctopus.
Excellent. My eyebrows raised because I was like, I know there's a joke coming, and it's going to be a good. So another thing that I thought was really good was the end, the way it ended with Jack Crusher being the guy 5 years ago that was listening in. So this was also earned because in a previous episode, Beverly tells Picard, she says, I did tell him about you and he did not want to meet you. And now we know that that's what that was. She told him, Jack, about him. Jack went to go investigate and was curious about his dad. And he asked him straight up, what, do you have a family outside of this? And Picard, with his chest out, feeling the adulation from the crowd, says, Starfleet is the only family I've ever needed. Now we totally get where he's coming from. He's just putting on a show for these young cadets. He's taken it upon himself. He doesn't realize that there's somebody there listening that could hurt. But then it's thunderous applause. They're like, oh, wow, but it works because we understand Picard's not trying to be a jerk and he doesn't fully mean that. He's just putting on a show, and we understand why. But then we also understand now why Jack Crusher is crushed and doesn't want to meet Picard. He's like, all right, well, this guy,
Yeah, it's unfair, though, because it's completely out of context. I mean, Picard doesn't know he actually has a son at this point, so it's not fair to him to be judged on those words when he's not applying it to his actual children. Our child. And the other thing is, that whole, I hope to God that people don't treat me like that one day when I'm an old man, that I'm about to eat my food and they come up to me all, can we talk to you for a second? Like a group of 20 people.
That happens to you now, dude, at every convention. Yeah, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but it's more natural. It's more like sit down and, let's enjoy together, as opposed to the way he was kind of holding court for them. It does happen in some ways, but that actually reminded me of conventions. That scene reminded me of Star Trek conventions more so than Starfleet, which I thought that was a nice irony there. But yeah, I took note of that last line where he says that about Starfleet being his only family he's ever needed. And, there's truth to that too. Actually, there is some truth to that, because they've been in the same, family for decades. I think Riker says to Crusher, he's like, I watched you 20 years in the making or something like that before you, I watched all the interplay that led up to you being born. So
he's like, you guys just hurry up and do it. You wanna.
Yeah. So there's a lot of family there. That is family. And I feel the same about my fellow DS9ers. I feel like that's my family too, and not necessarily the only family I've ever needed, but definitely part of my family.
I've been in a similar situation when people come up to me and they're like, what's it like? What's Cirroc Lofton like? Is he really that funny and cool in real life? And I'm like, oh, gather around. I'll tell you all the,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Yeah, right.
Well, actually, another really cool nod for Star Trek fans when Picard was talking to the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed cadets was he mentioned a Temerian who spoke in interesting tongues, interesting metaphors and such. Now, that's definitely a non-appearance mention for Darmok. No, Darmok Dathon is the character's name. Darmok is the episode name. Captain Dathon, I believe. Everybody in the live chat, correct me or in the comments below, as I'm sure you are already. I believe it's Captain Dathon. The episode is called Darmok because he says Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra is the big famous line. But it was a really cool nod to that very famous and well-known and well-loved episode. So that was cool. A lot of little nods here and there. Oh, speaking of which, Cirroc, did you see Odo? Did you catch that? It was just for a second. When Shaw was telling Seven of Nine about changelings, let me see, I'll pull it up real quick. When Captain Shaw was talking to Seven of Nine about changelings, he handed her a pad, and let's see though, and I believe Don Crandall sent in a screenshot of it. Yeah, here it is. He handed her a pad with the information about the bucket, and this is what it showed for like half a second.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, but it was so quick that you have to be really looking closely and not taking notes, But how cool is that? Our buddy Malissa Longo as well caught that right away.
Wow.
Somebody in Don Crandall's group sent this screenshot in, but that's so cool. Good old Odo.
That's cool. They put him in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they borrowed from the DS9 storyline and brought in the Dominion War and the Changeling and Wolf 359. They kind of really borrowed a lot of this subject matter that we talked about on DS9.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great episode all around. I really loved Todd's performance as Shaw in this one, like a different type of performance than his initial first episode. Really powerful stuff that we covered earlier about the Battle of Wolf 359, which, by the way, we totally forgot in the first segment, but you could definitely speak on losing people you love in the Battle of Wolf 359, right?
I know all about it. That's why I kind of was cheering for Shaw when he was giving Picard a piece of his mind about what happened.
Get him! This one's for Mom.
And my mom, too. Add that to the list. So I kind of was rooting for him in that moment. And, that's why I empathize with Shaw. He was like, and the way he told that story, I thought it was just a great performance. When he mentioned like being chosen and he was the last pick, and then the line went something to the effect of, and the lieutenant didn't even pick themselves, didn't even pick herself, didn't realize
powerful stuff
that it would be her last moment too, just all of that kind of stuff just made you think about heroism, suffering. You mentioned survivor's guilt, which I thought was a great analysis of what I felt was being expressed in this. And yeah, I mean, wouldn't you say this was Captain Shaw's redemption?
I mean, for me, it's certainly, I feel like to anybody except for the most vehement Shaw haters, I feel like this was definitely explained who he is and why he is like this in spades. I mean, it made it very clear what he's gone through. It made it very clear why he feels the way he does. And it made it very clear what his intentions are. He saw 80% of his team die basically at random. And
He said
now
11,000 people dead. So that's,
yeah.
all in one moment.
And now he has to live with this guilt of why me? Why not them? Why not George? Why not Sally? Why not whomever? And he is now needing to justify that decision for the rest of his life. For the rest of his life, he has to prove that that lieutenant randomly made the right pick, and that kind of thing, that kind of guilt can drive people for a lifetime, and they can never be fully satiated. A lot of times they're always trying to, justify being alive instead of this other person who was maybe the engineering whiz, or this person's superior, or the life of the party, and he was just a grease monkey.
Right. Other scene that I liked too was the scene between Picard and Jack when they were at the 10 forward holodeck bar.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I liked about it was when Picard was telling his son about his young days chasing girls. And I thought that was like
he said they were enthusiastic.
Yeah, they were delightful and enthusiastic. And I was like, okay, delightful and enthusiastic. That's a Picard way to say it. and then he said something to the effect of, he says, well, you hooked up with those girls, and he says, we had an invitation.
So cute. Picard's like, hey, bro, don't come at me, man. They were enthusiastic. They invited me. You just drink your cheap whiskey.
Yeah. And I liked that scene because it actually was a pretty fair representation of a father talking to his kid about something. That's how he would describe it, not in the same kind of obscene ways that young people describe it when they're talking about it. I thought it was a classy way to talk about your
absolutely
excursions as a child.
Well, he's talking to his son too. He's got to keep it a little clean.
Yeah. So I thought it was right, and it was appropriate, and it was accurate. It was respectful. The other thing I thought was cool was when Jack kind of says, "Yeah, I'm not much of a wine guy," and it's funny because we just spent the whole first couple seasons talking about Chateau Picard and all of this wine, right? And he just throws it away with one line. Not on the wine.
But then he said, I prefer cheap whiskey on the rocks. And I'm like, who prefers cheap whiskey? What is he, a sadist? Or what is that, a masochist? Like he just, and then I saw the whiskey. It was like Jameson. I'm like, that's not that bad, dude. If you think that's cheap whiskey, then you lived a good life, man. We've had cheaper.
And then I also liked Jack when he says, Picard says, I hope this place is okay for you. I could change the program. And he says, no, I guess it's just, he said, this is as good as a place to die as any, as I suppose, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Just good lines. And then he goes into the thing. He says, so we got to talk about the elephant in the room, the hair. He wants to know when he's going to lose his hair.
Good writing.
Good writing. So once again, just this whole episode had a lot of good scenes. I thought also Jonathan Frakes, once again, to reiterate what you said earlier about some of the scenes he had. I noticed the lighting. He had a soft red light on his face sometimes, with maybe a blue on some sides. Different moments, the lighting was really good to emphasize kind of the moment of him having these monologues. One of which he kind of said, you spend your whole time, traveling or searching the galaxies, looking for the proof of anything of afterlife, specifically. And he was talking about losing a kid. And I thought those were kinds of moments that were well done in this, well performed, well written, and well shot.
I wonder if, I just thought of this, but like the moments with Riker trying to leave a message for Deanna, also very powerful because, he doesn't really know what to say or how to go about saying it. And when they were trying to decide how to get out of this situation, Riker was basically resigned to dying, but he said, maybe the ship will still be intact. So in his mind, he to him, he's resigned to the fact that they're going to die. He just wants to make sure the ship survives so that Deanna specifically can get this message. And that's a really powerful thought. And that's also really good writing in that, that's the most important thing on his mind is he just wants to send a message to the woman he loves and apologize or profess his love or whatever it is. But that's so powerful and important. So again, we can see the adversary's point of view. We can understand why they're saying no, but of course he ends up turning around, but still just a great scene.
Yeah. And I think, number one had some really good moments. Riker says, I think we should boldly get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny line, just to take a line that we normally hear and make light of it. Mm. And then there was another line he delivered I liked, and she said somebody said, Will, did you just throw an asteroid? She says, damn right I did.
Yeah.
The whole throwing an asteroid I thought was another cool special effect.
That was payback because she threw a ship at them. And I was like, this is beautiful. This is payback.
It was just really good writing. And I enjoyed watching this episode. Flowed very, very well. And these first 4 episodes have flown there, and they go together seamlessly, almost like a one motion picture that you're watching when you piece them all together.
Yeah, there are so many great scenes. We're just about out of time. I wish we could spend more time on all of these because I've got legions of notes. But yeah, Todd was amazing. So happy to have him join us. Oh, Janeway. Captain Janeway got a non-appearance mention as well. We have to mention that because that is huge. It was when the young cadets were asking about, how did you escape the Hirogen or something like that? Hirogen is an alien from Voyager. Really cool alien. Actually, I believe Tony Todd played one, like the main Alpha Hirogen in one of the episodes with the Hirogen, if I remember correctly. And so they're big hunter species. But then somebody said, did Admiral Janeway offer you any advice? So that was a cool mention for her. Anyway, no Worf and Raffi in this episode, so it'll be nice to see them in episode 5.
Was there no more Raffi?
I don't think so.
Okay,
not in this one. They were pretty heavy in the third one.
They were, but not in this one. Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Let's give some very special thanks to some very special people by the names of Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin, Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Heed, Jed Thompson, Luther Haynes Jr., sounds like a singer, Dr. Courtney Lewis, Beth Ernest, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. Also, very quickly, shout out to our good buddy Don Crandall, who sent in that image there. Let me see very quickly if there was anything. Oh, he does mention the Hirogen. It doesn't say anything about Tony Todd, but I believe that was the case. He mentions the F-bombs and the admiral that said sheer fucking hubris to Picard. That was cool. Mentions 7 of 9 mentioned pot. He says, as far as real drugs go, LSD was mentioned in a joke in Star Trek 4, but Kirk mistakenly called it LDS instead of LSD. That's funny. Changeling's bucket. This is cute. So here is the pot that we mentioned that the Changeling may be in. Here is an image of Odo's original bucket, but with our good buddy Nog holding it. So that's pretty awesome. Great shot there.
Yeah.
So good stuff from Don Crandall. That's about it.
Sweet.
All right. So everybody at home, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time. Keep watching Star Trek Picard. Tweet out Todd Stashwick and tell him how much you enjoy his performance and how you are sorry for everything you said a couple weeks ago about Captain Shaw. You are apologizing now. And let everybody know how much you're loving it. All right. That's it. We'll see you next time, everybody. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.